Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Chicago Bulls weekly video. We have a lot to discuss in relation to the Chicago Bulls this week. So many things to discuss. The positives, there are some negatives as well. But overall, in terms of results, we've had a pretty fine week over here in Chicago. Let's talk about the week for Chicago and the week ahead of us for the Chicago Bulls in this video. Let's do it. What's up, everybody? It's the Aidan Sports Show and welcome back to another video. Today we've got a Chicago Bulls video in relation to the week that we have had with the Chicago Bulls and the week that we are going to have this week in relation to the Chicago Bulls with some very, very big games out in the West. And we're going to be looking back at those games and we're going to be looking into the future with the future games ahead of us. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below how good was this week for the Chicago Bulls. Who was your standout player? Who was your sixth man, which is the best bench player? And who needs to improve the most coming out of this week? The 3 awards. Who are you giving those 3 awards to? Let's look at the Chicago Bulls week so far in terms of the results that we've had. Now, in the last week of the Chicago Bulls weekly, we led up to the Warriors game and how we were 0-3. Since then, we've managed to pick up 2 major victories against the Wizards, 115-107 the first time, 133-130 the second time. Then we had a major loss to the Bucks, 126-96, and then we picked up a solid victory against the Mavericks, 118-108. Very, very good victories overall for the Chicago Bulls. And again, we ended up this week being 3-1. We played 4 games and we won 3 of them. 3 out of 4 is a very, very good return in the week for the Chicago Bulls. After a very, very poor first week, we picked it up in the second week, picking up 3 very, very important victories that kind of leads us towards 500 now. And I want to see more weeks like this, but again, knowing that the teams that we versed one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA right now in the Washington Wizards twice, and we versed the Mavericks without Luka and Porzingis. Obviously, there are negatives to take out of those victories, but the fact of the matter is, it's given in the NBA. You're beaten what's put in front of you. We were faced this week with putting up 2 games against the worst defense in the league. We are expected to win those games. Granted, they might have a better team on paper, but we look like the better team overall in those games. And we kept the lead for majority of the time in both those games. Milwaukee is just, Milwaukee Bucks is going to be competing in the playoffs, is going to be in the top seeds, is going to be fighting for a championship. So competing with them would have been ideal. And I would have loved to compete with the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, competing with big teams and staying close is an absolute essential, in my opinion, towards the season. If we have the chance to compete with the Bucks or in future games against the Clippers and the Lakers, these top teams, we compete with them, we come close, and maybe we win those games. Those are the biggest games to win because those are the games we don't expect to win. And more games that we win that we're not expected to win could mean a better chance to make that playoffs, which I think everybody's goal is at the moment. Milwaukee, Atlanta and Indiana showed us that against the top sides, we still have a lot of work to do because so far, all those teams are top of the table for the East right now. And again, we have work to do. And the Mavericks was a big victory in terms of keeping it close, in terms of the third quarter, in terms of finding a way to win and doing what we're supposed to do, doing the job that is supposed to be given to us, considering Luka and Porzingis were out for those 2 games. So beating the Mavericks was very important, and that's what leads to a very positive victory. Some of the things that we saw this week, managing leads. That's the one thing that we said last week that we couldn't be able to do. We didn't manage leads enough. Every time we went on a lead or we went on a run, managing runs. Anytime that we were on a run, we ended up struggling to stay on the run. Or anytime they went on a run, the other team, we couldn't catch up to them. This week was, despite the Bucks game was just an outlier this week, to be honest. For the Wizards and the Mavericks, we kept the lead for majority of the game. Yes, they had chances where they came back to 2, but then we would extend it back to 6. There was times where they took the lead, and then we ended up taking the lead back, and we never gave it up. Things like this, that's a massive positive in my opinion for the Chicago Bulls in the terms of the playing style that we want. To be able to keep the lead, to be a team that is more experienced in the fourth quarter. Again, Zach Levine has said it multiple times, and it really sticks out to me, is that the starters want to play in the fourth quarter. We want to be in a chance to compete for games in that fourth quarter, to fight for those games, because not necessarily all the time do you see the starters or even the bench mob. You just see the garbage time players play in the fourth quarter, and you get to see a little bit more of those players. Again, I loved seeing Devin Dotson play, but that came at a huge expense of a loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I would never want that. I want the Bulls to be competitive, and I want the Bulls to fight for every game, win or lose. I want to know that we were close enough to compete and win for the game. And that's where the confidence comes from. So I want to see more of that. And again, this week has been very good with that. Very, very close wins with the Mavericks and the Wizards. And hopefully in the next week against the teams like the Blazers and the Kings and everybody else, we're able to find a little bit more of that. We're able to compete against some of the top sides in the NBA and maybe win the game, but compete with them. And that's the positive I have this week. We managed runs and we kept the lead very, very well. And we're showing that we're growing in how to control a game from being up. Now, it's not perfect. The game specifically with the Warriors, again, that was 2 weeks ago now, so I don't want to go too much into it. The game against the Warriors, we didn't manage that game properly, and that's why we ended up getting a buzzer beater costed on us. But a game against the Wizards, there were situations where it wasn't handled correctly, but we got the win in the end. So many people won't seem to remember that or really care about that. It's a work in progress. None of this is going to be easy. Controlling games in the fourth quarter for the team, one of the youngest teams in the NBA, might I add, in the Chicago Bulls, it will never be easy to control the games and to control the tempo every single game. There are going to be nights where you see inconsistencies. There are going to be nights where you see blowouts, and there are going to be nights when you see us blowing out other teams. Hopefully we see that soon too. So it's all about the patience, and I still encourage that, considering we are not far away from a playoff spot right now. The record for this week is 3-1. Overall, we're 3-4. So we picked up all of our wins this week, which is proving to be a major week for the Chicago Bulls. And we still, I believe we're still in 10th, but again, knowing what I know, there are other teams that have played today. So we end up actually 11th in the conferences, right, in the Eastern Conference right now, with the Nets, the Heat, and the Hawks still fighting it out we're fighting out with these teams to become in the top 8, and of course teams below us like the Wizards, Hornets, Raptors, teams like that we still need to look out for as well. Now let's talk about the negatives of this week. Now, there's not many negatives to talk about, but there is major negatives to talk about. There's a big negative here, and that's of course the players that are going to be missing for the Chicago Bulls for the time being. And again, we seem to be one of the earliest teams, one of the first teams to experience this firsthand. The virus has gotten our team, and a lot of our players now have to sit out. Chandler Hutchinson, unfortunately, has the virus. Satoransky, unfortunately, has the virus. Some staff members, unfortunately, have the virus. Larry Marketing is injured. There are players in this team that will be missing a lot of time, unfortunately, because of what this virus has done. And we are one of the first teams to be hit with this strongly. And of course, it's not going to be easy, and other teams will have to face this as well. The Houston Rockets was a team that faced this very early as well. Their game even got postponed from injuries and the virus. So it's going to be hard for teams like this to be able to adapt, to be able to adjust, and to find a short-staffed team to find victories and to find stability and to find ways to win the game. Now, of course, the positives in Thaddeus Young coming back was a big positive, but losing Satoransky, losing Hutchinson are big losses, in my opinion, to this bench, which is something that I feel sorry for Billy Donovan and this Bulls team for having to face, considering he wanted to use Satoransky. It's not like Satoransky wasn't getting any minutes. The dude was playing a lot of minutes for us. I feel sorry because he wanted to use Chandler Hutchinson, had an amazing preseason, Chandler Hutchinson, and he was used for his defense. He wants to use Ryan Arcidiacono. He used him a lot throughout the regular season as well. There are a few players that are going to be missing with this Chicago Bulls team that is just very unfortunate. And that's the big negative to take out of this week. We managed to do very, very well without them. Larry Markin played one game this week. Satoransky played one game this week. But ultimately, a lot of our individual performers that didn't play are out because they're in NBA protocol or they have the virus. Or in Larry's case, he's still injured. So that's the negatives to take out of this week. But overall, I hope not to dwell on this. I hope this is not something I want to bring into next week, because I want next week to be a good week for us as well. I want us to develop into a very, very fine, well-adaptable, and a team that does have that next up mentality like the Bulls constantly claim. Let's move into individual performance tonight, this week, and see who is my player of the week for the week this week. There's a lot of weeks in that sentence. The must improve player for this week. It's very, very tough to say, to be honest. But again, I seem to be targeting this player out a lot. And there are two players that come to mind this week that must improve, especially when they're in the roles that they're given this in the course of the NBA and for the future games as well. There's two players I want to target here. Kobe White and Wendell Carter. Because Kobe White is someone that is in a new development role once again, similar to Wendell Carter. He's in a whole new type of environment. So saying that he must improve, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because he's in a situation where he needs to improve. He's in a situation where he's adapting to a new play style, trying to balance himself. Saying that he needs to improve, in my opinion, is not a personal attack or even a bad thing to say about him, because I think he knows what he needs to improve on. He says it himself, he's trying to limit turnovers. He has a goal for every turnover game. He wants to get less than 3 turnovers per game. That's a good goal to have. And sometimes he doesn't reach that goal. So me saying that he needs to improve, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing at all. But I do want to target Wendell Carter as the must improve player, because at the end of the day, with Larry Marketing injured, and I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, with Larry Marketing injured, Wendell Carter needs to take up a lot of responsibility in that front court. He's got a rookie next to him that is the power forward. That's the front court. A rookie power forward in Patrick Williams and an experienced center in the NBA in Wendell Carter that is developing into a new role. And again, me saying that Wendell Carter needs to improve is not a bad thing. I personally don't think it's a bad thing, because he is in a whole new different style of game than what he was 2 years ago, last season. This season, he has a lot more responsibility. And responsibility for some people can be easy to obtain, can be easy to manage, or hard to manage, and it gets a little bit more complicated than that. I'm not saying what Wendell Carter, how his attitude is. I don't know his attitude. I don't know as a person. But what I do know is that his performances on the court today or yesterday and throughout the week has not been up to the standards of a starting center. And that goes to show with Daniel Gafford's performances off of the bench. He's outperforming. Daniel Gafford is outperforming Wendell Carter. Thaddeus Young is outperforming Wendell Carter. And I don't know how long this is going to last, but if Wendell Carter wants to remain the starter on this team, and I'm sure he does, I'm sure Billy wants him as well, because Billy trusts Wendell Carter. Otherwise, he wouldn't be allowing him to take 3-pointers, take mid-ranges, take 20 shots a night. If Wendell Carter wants to be the starting center on this team long term, he needs to find ways to improve his game. And this is going to be a long-term process for him, which is why I'm not slating him. I'm not calling him trash. I'm not asking for him to get traded. None of those things I'm asking for. But right now, I have to say he does need to improve on his performances. That's all I'm going to say on the matter with Wendell Carter. Again, I don't feel like it's a bad thing to call out these players when they know themselves they probably have to improve a little bit more. Wendell Carter is definitely part of that conversation. Again, he did not have a bad week. No one really on this team has had a bad week except for that Milwaukee game. And in that week, Kobe White was the one that was really poor in that game. He's not had a bad week, but I do think with the potential there, and we all see his potential, we all know the potential. Everyone from the moon and back tells us there's a lot of potential in Wendell Carter. So it's just up to finding a way to live up to that potential. And if there is potential there, how can we get the best out of it? And if we can't, then obviously I'm not sure if he's the right center for us. But we have to wait and see on that. It's too early to tell. We have a long way to go. We had a positive week. It's just one of those things that's on my mind, and I had to get it out there. The sixth man of the week for the Chicago Bulls. Wow. There are two players, in my opinion, that are shoes in for this award. Daniel Gafford had an amazing week this week, brought energy, brought some good rim protection, some good putbacks, and did his job amazingly well. And everybody seems to be really hyping up Daniel Gafford after that week. And Thaddeus Young, who returned to the Chicago Bulls and brought us a whole different dynamic, brought us post moves. Again, Billy Donovan at the very beginning of the year said that he needs to find ways to not allow the Chicago Bulls players' strengths to be nullified. Use your strengths. Thaddeus Young's strengths is the post. It always has been the post. It always will be the post. Thaddeus Young's strength is going into the post against mismatches, even against bigger men, and doing a post hook or finding a way to get a bucket there. Robin Lopez was someone that was very good in the post for us as well. Thaddeus Young, that's his strength. And I love to see that he was able to use his strength. His strength is dribbling as well, finding ways to create plays. He's been very important for us this week. But I am going to give it to Daniel Gafford because I think Daniel Gafford, consistently wise, has had a better week than Thaddeus Young. Now, Thaddeus Young, it's good to see him return. He did miss one game this week for the Washington Wizards. I think Daniel Gafford is one of those players where if I didn't give it to him, I feel like I would feel bad that I didn't because he's had a really strong week this week for the Chicago Bulls. He went from the first game to the Washington Wizards to only playing around 6 minutes to playing around 19 minutes in the last game, and he's gradually stepping up. Daniel Gafford has a lot to prove. At the end of the day, as much it is being a bench player for the Chicago Bulls, he has a lot to prove to show that he belongs here. He's a player that is welcome here. He's a player that any team would want and any team would be willing to give a chance to. And this week he's proven that. And a lot of people hype up Daniel Gafford to be the next big thing. I'm not sure if he is going to be the next big thing or not. I can't predict the future. But if he is going to have performances like this on a consistent basis, there is a good shout for him to start. And not only that, there is a good shout for him to be a long-term future asset for this Chicago Bulls team and not just a role player. So this is one of those things where Daniel Gafford needs to keep it up. And I do think he will keep it up because at the end of the day, Daniel Gafford has the energy. Daniel Gafford, it seems like a very confident person. When you can just tell when he speaks, the confidence exudes out of him. He is a confident lad, and I do think he'll be able to keep up these performances because he has belief in himself that he is more than what people want to give him. And I'm very, very proud of the way that Daniel Gafford performed in this week. And player of the week, it has to be Zach Levine. Zach Levine's finally getting one. I know it's been the third one I've made. Zach Levine did get the preseason player of the week. I guess player of the preseason pretty much. But this week, Zach Levine's my player of the week. Zach Levine was phenomenal this week. He did have stagnant performances. Again, there were games where he dropped 16. Against the Bucks, he wasn't particularly great. But overall, he's been our most consistently good player in terms of scoring. Playmaking, he's been good as well. But ultimately, that Mavericks game is what made me lean him towards him than maybe Otto Porter, who was also a shout for this in my opinion. And that's why I'm giving Zach Levine the player of the week. I think this has been a well-deserved week for Zach Levine. I thought he's had a tremendous week for us, and I'd like to see what he could do next week. Again, he is our best player. He should be getting this week in and week out, and I want to see him perform to the levels where we expect from him to become that all-star. Defense, he's been very strong this week defensively. He's got on blocks on Giannis. He's got on blocks on Russell Westbrook. He's played good defense this week, and this is one of those things where people asked him about being defensive player of the week. I think win more games and conversations will be had, just like what he said. Let's win more games and Zach Levine will get the credit he deserves. But as a Bulls channel, he's going to get the credit regardless because he had a great week for us. And that is this week. The next games that we have throughout next week will be the Portland Trailblazers, which will be taking place tomorrow. Sacramento Kings, which will be taking place on Wednesday. Then we've got the Lakers, which will be taking place on Friday. And then we got the Clippers, which will be taking place on Sunday. Of course, those are the American days. For me, it's actually Monday, Saturday, Thursday, and obviously tomorrow. So again, I am a day ahead technically because of Australian time. So I'm sorry if I do get the timings mixed up here and there. But that's the week for the Chicago Bulls in all. You know the weeks that we're going to have. Then after that, we do have a few games afterwards. We have a very good few weeks of tough games, and let's see what the Bulls can get out of this week for the season. A good week here, and I'm very, very confident towards the rest of the season. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you're new. A very long video, I do apologize, but let's see what we could do this week for the Chicago Bulls, and let's see how next week will ride for us as well. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and peace.